This week we are working on the k and the g sounds. K and G are both made in the back of the mouth. K, g. Those are what we call voiced and voiceless sounds. So they're made in the same place, but k is voiceless, k, k, and g is voiced, g, g. One way we can cue our children is to point to the part of our mouth that they make the sound. We can also tell them to keep their tongue down. So kids oftentimes do a T for K, t, instead of k, or D for G, d, instead of g. And so if you're really looking at their mouth, you should be able to tell if they're doing a T instead of a T, instead of a k, because their mouth should be closed more. So if you're having them do a k, you want to tell them to open their mouth bigger and keep their tongue down in the bottom of their mouth. This may be very difficult for them at first. So sometimes you can do things like put a tongue depressor to help cue them to keep their tongue down, or a sucker or something like that, even a spoon to help them keep their tongue down. We give kids cues sometimes by coughing and helping them to feel the sound in the back of their throat. So that's where we're trying to make the sound. Is, you know, we don't quite make the cuss sound and the gut quite as far back as that, but at least it gives them an idea of we're not making the sound in the front of our mouth, it's back in the back of our mouth. Some things I've also done with my kids is when you lay down or tilt your head back, it kind of actually pulls the tongue back, and so it makes it easier, a little bit easier for kids to make that sound. So if you can avoid doing that, because we're not going to make cuz and gus sounds on the floor all the time, then don't give that cue. But if they are completely unstimulable, that means they cannot make that sound no matter how many times you model it or give them other cues, then that would be a good way to kind of cue them to try to do that sound. So some activities that you can do with your kids this week, there's lots of books that have K's and G's in them. 5 Little Monkeys, Jumping on the Bed, that's a good one for medial K. Medial position is always a little bit harder than starting initial or final. And sometimes with K's and G's, kids will actually be able to get it at the ends of words first before the beginning, but it just depends on your kids. So you might want to play around and see which one is easier for them, and the ones that are easier, you might want to start with those. One duck stuck. He gets stuck in the muck. Lots of great rhyming words for that phonological awareness, but also lots of good cuss sounds. The word duck can be a little bit tricky because if kids are using a T, they're going to say dut. And that D and that T are made in the same spot. So that might be a little bit harder for our kids to say unless they're in that, you know, they're doing ka a lot of the time, and that would be a good one to work on to make it a little bit harder. So you might want to work on the word muck more in this book if you're reading something like that. Good night gorilla. You could talk about the gorilla. You can talk about the key that the gorilla gets out. You can talk about cage and monkey if that's you're working on the medial ka. So this is one of my favorite books because it's a word. It has some words, but mostly is a wordless picture book. And the gorilla just gets up to all this mischief and lets out all of his friends. So it's really, really cute. It's a good one. And he says good night. So again, good might be a little bit harder because it has a D at the end. You could pretend to cook in the kitchen, and there's lots of good cuss sounds in food. Sorry, so chicken, burger, corn, carrot, pickle. If your kids are eating any of those foods this week, try to really get them to do some of those cuss and gus sounds in the words that they're eating. This is a cookie game. This is really cute. Cookie is always a really motivating word, so if they get cookies as a dessert or something like that, have them try to do their cuz. This is a matching game, and they have to find the shapes and match those. So every time they find a shape, they would say cookie. So that's a cute one. Farm animals have a lot of cuz and gus, or just farm things in general. So if you have pretend play farm set, this would be a good thing to work on. Pig, chicken, cow. You could work on cage, you could work on egg. I think there's a ton of K's and G's in farm stuff for some reason. Pumpkin, if you do that. This is a cute game, Count Your Chickens. I really like this game because it's a cooperative game. You work together to move the mommy chicken to save the baby chicks. And I always have the children talk about putting the baby chicks in the coop. So that's a good word to work on as well. You can also play with figurines and talk about whether it's a girl, this one's a girl, or a guy. You could say if it's a good girl or a bad guy, you could do that. So that would be a good way to integrate that into some of their play if they have any of those things. You can also play with trucks, work on truck or track with a train. So there's a lot of words that have K's and G's in them that your kids are probably working on and trying to say every day. So go ahead and try to think about how you can integrate some of those speech sounds into your everyday and practice. The more you practice throughout the week, the better the carryover is going to be. All right, thank you. Bye.